This is all about Bitcoin, a show dedicated to all things, questions, and markets related to Bitcoin, little b for the currency, and Bitcoin, big B for the network, a collective journey to understand, apply, and use this innovation, all Bitcoin, all the time. Let's have a live look at Bitcoin right now. The CoinDesk Bitcoin price XBX index is currently at, let's see, just about $19,142. Bitcoin is down just about 1% over the past 24 hours. The most reliable reference prices for institutions, it's up actually about 0.5% rather. The most reliable reference prices for institutions since 2014 are now published under the CoinDesk brand, trusted globally as the leader in crypto news, events, and data.
The chart of the day is brought to you by Crypto.com, the world's fastest growing crypto app.
Bitcoin and Ether have traded in a tight range this week and are finishing the week pretty much back where they started. As macroeconomic turbulence continues across the globe, the crypto market appears to have suffered little impact, continuing the trend of Bitcoin's low volatility compared to traditional assets. This chart showing that the pound sterling and Bitcoin volatility levels have become almost identical. The 30-day volatility for both shows the pound is on the verge of becoming more volatile than BTC. Meanwhile, in the bond market, the Bank of Japan may face a $200 billion loss in its bond holdings if it loses control of the 6-year-old yield curve control program to keep the 10-year rate at 0.25%. That, coupled with the resulting sharp rally in the yen, may inject volatility into the risky assets, including cryptocurrencies. Here's our CoinDesk Bitcoin News Roundup. Goldman Sachs seeing U.S. dollar strength continuing, which could weigh down on Bitcoin. A Goldman strategist saying a peak in the U.S. dollar feels several quarters away, with the Fed unexpected to embark on easing until 2024, and a trough in growth also seems months away. Goldman analysts further noting that in the 1970s, the dollar didn't begin to weaken amid a similarly high inflation environment until economic activity declined and the Federal Reserve loosened its monetary policy. Bitcoin has a tendency to fall as the US dollar index goes up. Meanwhile, Bitcoin miner Core Scientific and Argo Blockchain downgraded from buy to neutral by Wall Street investment bank D.A. Davidson as crypto winter continues to weigh heavily on the profitability of the miners. Analyst Chris Brendler saying he is still positive on Bitcoin's long-term potential, but he is pulling the plug for now on the miners as higher power costs, increasing network competition, and debt burdens have further strained profitability and liquidity. And finally, South Korean prosecutors saying reports that Do Kwon has left Singapore last month and landed in Dubai, likely as a stopover to another unknown destination, are, quote, not false, according to the latest Bloomberg report. Last week, Kwon refrained from revealing his location to podcast host Laura Shin and denied he is on the run, despite South Korea issuing an arrest warrant, invalidating his passport, and asking Interpol to issue a red notice. All right, joining me now to discuss BTC price and other Bitcoin news is our weekend review panel. We've got CoinDesk Managing Editor of Markets, Brad Keoun in Austin, and we've got reporter Cheyenne Ligon in New York. Welcome, Cheyenne. And Brad, closing out our week.
Happy Friday, Christine.
Happy Friday. All right. Let's start off with the markets, Brad. So, Bitcoin did not do much. That trading range, it's nothing. Tell me a bit about this and what you make of this low volatility.
It's fascinating to watch, Christine. As we've discussed, this has kind of been the situation and for the past few weeks, but traditional markets have never been more uncertain than they are right now. Everything completely in flux, really fast movements in just about all the asset classes. We are just editing one of our stories, our daily market story, and we were just going through all the big things that kind of happened in the global markets this week. There was all the noise in the UK and the gilt market and the British pound over the UK resignation of Prime Minister Truss, and then today there's an intervention by the Japanese government in the yen market because the dollar's gotten so strong versus the yen. there's been speculation all week about what the Fed's going to do as, markets get really dicey, and we're seeing some real movement on that today. And then you had the oil and, additional talk about Biden and the SPR and what's oil going to do. Meanwhile, Bitcoin's just been keeping it. People say it's dull, but in some sense, there's this tension where Bitcoin is just keeping where it is while everything else is kind of crazy. So it has been pretty fascinating. Well, I'm looking at some of your notes,
and you say, now we're seeing Bitcoin at 19,000 and, a week ago, 19,200. I mean, that's not much of a movement at all. Why do you think that with all this volatility in traditional assets, we're seeing Bitcoin so steady?
I mean, there's probably a lot of theories about that. It could be that there's been long talk about the potential decoupling. Bitcoin has been trading like a risky asset, but it could be that, one of the threads of speculation in traditional markets is that the Fed has raised interest rates so fast, to control inflation that now they're actually in jeopardy of kind of really messing up the markets and putting the banking system in jeopardy. This is what I talked about last week. And so, and this is what Helene Braun wrote about in her story a few weeks ago, that the price stability mandate of the Fed was going to be bumping up against their financial stability, which is really their original stability. They don't want to, really screw things up in the markets. And so we might be coming to this juncture where the Fed might have to say, all right, they'll tolerate a little more inflation in order to keep things on the rails. What happened in the UK was a real, alarm bell for how you can very quickly and easily mess things up if you're not careful.
So do you think that there will be some substance to this so-called Fed pivot? I mean, what are analysts saying about the next meeting?
The next meeting is almost certainly baked in November at 75 basis points, the same pace they've been going. But what they're talking about now, they go out and say whatever they need to say in the market on any given day in order to get the markets to do what they need them to do. So today they just need to put a little cushion under the market. And so you have these Fed officials and they're talking about maybe downshifting. That's the term they're using, downshifting from 75 basis points in December meeting down to 50 basis points. And you're seeing that in the rates market today, which is looking basically gone from almost everybody thinking we're going to have 75 basis points in December to now it's like a 50-50 chance for 50 versus. I mean, these are all just little things people are looking at to try to figure out what the Fed's thinking.
And what's going on in Japan? How may the yen inject some volatility into risk assets?
Well, the Japan story is, another manifestation of the strong dollar story. And Japan, Bank of Japan, they have been, constantly super easy monetary policy forever. Even their central bank's been buying equities. Not even the Fed has done that. And now the Fed's getting tighter. They're jacking up the interest rates. And so that just makes the dollar so much stronger than the yen, but the yen is, and that means that all of a sudden Japan, which imports a lot, they're basically importing inflation, and so their economy can't handle it. And it's just another example of kind of what, Bitcoin may not have all the answers, but Bitcoiners have been predicting all of this stuff for years, that we basically have an unsustainable global economy and financial system, and all this stuff's finally coming to a head, and you're seeing it this week.
And it's interesting because you're seeing Bitcoin so stable. I mean, this is what Bitcoin was made for. This is its time to shine. So, if people want to buy some Bitcoin to get some stability and out of the global financial system that is seeing a lot of volatility now, this may be the use case. All right, Brad, hold that thought. But I also want to get to a legal case that is very, contentious and has a lot of Bitcoiners looking out for. This is Hodlonaut. He is the Twitter space cat who won his case against self-proclaimed Bitcoin inventor Craig Wright. Hodlonaut called Wright a fraud and a scammer in the past, and CoinDesk's Cheyenne Ligon, who's here with us, was in Norway during the week-long trial. So, Cheyenne, I would love for you to dive into this. So what was the legal point that Hodlonaut won exactly? That free speech is protected?
Essentially, yeah, that's pretty fair to say. So it's a little bit confusing because there's actually two cases involved in this, two cases that are going on concerning these tweets from March 2019. So basically, Hodlonaut tweeted that Craig Wright was a fraud and that he was fake Satoshi and that he was a scammer, and that upset Craig Wright, who filed a suit against him in the UK. And Hodlonaut, anticipating that suit, filed his own suit in Norway, where he's from. So that suit, it's kind of unusual. He was seeking a negative determination from the judge, basically saying that those tweets were lawful, that they were protected by the Norwegian right to free speech, and that Wright could not sue him in another jurisdiction for damages.
Okay, so does this preempt a UK defamation trial? What happens to that second trial?
So that's my understanding, yes, that basically because of there's a multinational treaty established by the Lugano Convention in 2007 that basically says that countries that are party to the treaty, legal verdicts are applicable across national lines. So that would prevent Craig Wright from suing him again, basically for the same crime in the UK.
Oh, interesting. And how does this set the tone for future defamation suits filed by Craig Wright?
I mean, it certainly doesn't help his case. You know, there's a bunch of verdicts now piling up where judges across the world are saying, you know, this person is a liar and this person repeatedly submits false evidence. That's happened in the United States and in the UK and now Norway. And, you know, I don't think it looks good, but at the same time, I mean, it clearly has not sated his thirst for going after people. I mean, he says he's going to appeal this case. So I don't think it looks good, but it doesn't prevent him from continuing.
Yeah, we see this tweet from Keoun, who is the main backer behind Craig Wright. He's the owner of CoinGeek, a big backer of BSV, Bitcoin Satoshi Vision token, a derivative of Bitcoin Cash, which itself is a derivative of Bitcoin. And so it seems that, you know, if we're to believe this tweet air and has the intention of having this case appealed. And so we'll continue to see this litigious battle play out in the courts right now. So, you know, it is unfortunate, but because, you know, a lot of these folks, I mean, Hodlonaut is a school teacher. They don't have the funds to wage these lengthy legal battles. Keoun does. And so he made his money in the internet gambling era.
That's why, right? You know, you go after people that can't fight back. And, you know, that the hope is that you just stop people from saying things about you that you don't want to be said. And that's just really unfortunate to see.
Yeah, and at least in this case, because Hodlonaut won, he was able to get his legal fees paid for in damages, or rather by the court order of about $400,000. So,
I mean, the judge said that Craig Wright has to pay those, but Craig Wright has a long history of not paying fees that he's told to pay in multiple countries. So we'll see if Hodlonaut's lawyers see that money.
Yeah, we'll certainly be tracking these developments, and Hodlonaut will be appearing on CoinDesk on Monday on All About Bitcoin. So we're certainly eager to learn more from his side. All right, taking a look at next week in the markets, Brad, what kind of economic data can we expect?
Well, the big economic report coming out next week is going to be the third quarter GDP report, and that is, you know, I think it's kind of a lagging indicator in some ways compared to, say, the jobs report and the inflation report for September that are already out. But But, it's kind of a political talking point in some ways. This will be the last, big economic report before the midterm elections. I don't know what necessarily that implies for Bitcoin, but, the big debate is whether, we went into a recession this year. And again, it's just always a talking point because, the economy, unemployment's at 3.5%. Everybody has a job pretty much if they want one. Wages are going up. And that's, again, the problem with the inflation situation. But so this will be kind of a lagging indicator, but again, might, be something if we have a positive number, then people will say, oh yeah, see, we told you we were not in a recession. If there's some surprise, I mean, it's supposed to be positive 1.7%. So
what about that trading range for Bitcoin, Brad? I mean, we're often seeing these signals that it's due for a breakout.
Jocelyn Young, one of our markets reporters, she had a piece out today noting that Bitcoin has actually, this is 14 straight days under 20K and just right under 20K. I mean, Bitcoin is not really doing that much, but it is staying even intraday has not gone above 20K in the past 14 days. It's really in this tight range right now. It's going to break out at some point. We don't know which way. But, probably looking at 20K on the upside, 18K. It's hard to say, which way it's going to break right now. It could kind of go either way. But that's probably the range we're in right now. And those would be the levels people be watching.
Also next week, watch out for CoinDesk's Trading Week, where we have a week-long series on all the ways that crypto offers innovative and novel ways to trade. Check that out because you're not in it for the tech, right? So check out those articles running all week long. Also, Cheyenne, what will you be looking at next week?
So Brad touched on this a little bit, but my team, the regulatory team, will definitely be mostly looking at the upcoming midterm elections. There's a lot going on, and the next few weeks we'll definitely be pursuing a lot of stories about different elections and fundraising and crypto packs and all that good stuff.
Awesome. All right. That's it for our week in review with Cheyenne and Brad. You guys have yourselves a wonderful weekend. Thanks for joining me. All right, that's it for All About Bitcoin. I'm your host, Christine Lee. We'll do it all over again on Monday at 3 o'clock Eastern. Also join me Monday morning at 9 a.m. in New York for First Mover. You're watching CoinDesk TV.